Já houve muitos concorrentes ao título de melhor caça da Segunda Guerra Mundial. Mas poucos se comparavam ao poder do P-51 Mustang. Os pilotos do Mustang dominaram as batalhas aéreas sobre a Alemanha, que acabaram destruindo a força aérea de Hitler.
It's one-to-one combat, and you got to be aggressive.
If you think you're going to be defensive in a fighter plane, you're lost.
I wanted to be the tip of the spear. I thought that was the right place to be.
A mistura de manobrabilidade, alto desempenho, poder de fogo devastador e longo alcance tornava o Mustang invencível.
It was the finest as far as I'm concerned.
Para muitos, o P-51 Mustang continua sendo o melhor caça que existe. Usando filmes de arquivo e reconstruções coloridas, Postos de Combate entra no perigoso mundo dos pilotos de caças Mustang. P-51 Mustang. No final do verão de 1940, a Força Aérea Britânica travava um combate fatal contra a Força Aérea Alemã, que ficou conhecido como a Batalha da Grã-Bretanha. A situação era crítica. Os caças Spitfire e Hurricane britânicos eram bons, mas não estavam sendo construídos a tempo de impedir uma invasão alemã. A solução era importar caças dos Estados Unidos.
We soldiered on almost alone. We did know, I think, what we wanted, and we had some super brains who were ordering these things. We knew what we wanted and we got it.
A empresa de aviação North American já tinha um projeto para um novo caça de alto desempenho e longo alcance. Após apenas 117 dias, a estrutura estava pronta. Era um avião esguio e aerodinâmico que atingiu 615 km por hora nos primeiros testes, tornando-o mais veloz que o Spitfire em baixa altitude, apesar de carregar o dobro de combustível que dava a ele o dobro de alcance. Mas em grande altitude o motor Allison perdia potência e ele levava 2 vezes mais tempo que o Spitfire para chegar a 6.000 metros. Embora ele não fosse adequado para combate em grande altitude, a velocidade e o longo alcance o tornavam o avião ideal para missões de ataque em baixa altitude. A Força Aérea Britânica encomendou 620 aeronaves que foram batizadas de Mustang.
That's a wild horse, isn't it? It didn't have wild traits. It was a good airplane. And, but Mustang is, I mean, everybody would like a good Mustang horse. Yes, good name for it.
This is the Mustang, the fastest Army cooperation aircraft in the world. They've already been in action, ground-strafing the enemy in the Axis-occupied countries across the English Channel. The RAF pilots like them. German soldiers in northern France do not.
Os americanos demonstraram pouco interesse pela nova arma que haviam criado para os britânicos. Eles não queriam entrar na guerra que estava devastando a Europa. Mas em dezembro de 1941, o curso da Segunda Guerra mudou quando o Japão atacou Pearl Harbor e os Estados Unidos entraram na guerra. As forças aliadas concordaram que a prioridade seria derrotar Hitler na Europa. A Grã-Bretanha havia escapado de uma invasão, mas agora houve outra. Uma invasão amistosa, quando milhares de soldados americanos chegaram à Grã-Bretanha para combater o fascismo. Entre eles havia jovens pilotos recém-treinados, confiantes e ansiosos pelo combate, quaisquer que fossem os riscos.
Now look, fellas, let's face it. This is our business.
In war, there's only one place for you to be, on your toes.
You know, a fighter pilot basically is an individualist. Nobody has any ego in his family because he has it all.
Did you pipe that fair weather pilot telling me? I can handle this. I was young and cocky, too. In fact, a conceited son of a bitch. No, I thought I was pretty good. In fact, you probably never heard of a pilot that didn't think he was #1 fighter pilot in the world. Hell, I've met thousands of them.
To stay alive, you've got to act alive.
It's the deed that counts, not what you say. It's the deed. Your actions.
Learn and live. If you don't, you won't.
If you're going to come in combat against someone else, you know you're going to beat them. If you don't have that feeling, if you think you're going to be defensive in a fighter plane, you're lost.
If you don't think you're a winner, you're in the wrong business.
Okay? Okay.
Os americanos precisavam de toda a confiança possível se quisessem derrotar os experientes pilotos alemães. Estavam prestes a entrar para a grande liga do combate aéreo.
Well, we certainly know where we are now. Young cadets in full parade. The youthful hope and pride of the Army Air Forces. And we mean it. Yes, they're the best young flying blood in the world.
E os Estados Unidos também se orgulhavam dos aviões que eles pilotavam.
America's newest fighter plane, the P-47 Thunderbolt, has left the drafting boards and is now in mass production.
O principal concorrente ao título de melhor caça americano era o P-47 Thunderbolt. Era enorme e pesava mais de 8 toneladas.
Thousands of rounds of ammunition are stored in its wings. Guns are tested on the ground. Thunderbolts in name, they pack thunderbolts of firepower.
Em baixa altitude, o peso do Thunderbolt limitava seu desempenho. Mas quanto maior a altitude, melhor ele voava e mais superava os caças alemães. Mas o imenso motor do Thunderbolt gastava mais de 4,5 litros de combustível a cada 30 segundos, o que limitava seu alcance. E alcance era o segredo da vitória na guerra aérea europeia. Os Estados Unidos precisavam de um caça para escoltar os bombardeiros das bases na Grã-Bretanha até a capital alemã, Berlim. No verão de 1943, os aliados lançaram uma ofensiva de bombardeios contra a Alemanha. Foi uma operação de 24 horas. Os britânicos bombardeavam à noite e os americanos de dia. A campanha americana havia sido baseada na crença de que os bombardeiros Flying Fortress e Liberator podiam se defender dos caças alemães. Mas os ataques diurnos resultaram em muitas baixas e logo ficou claro que os bombardeiros precisavam da proteção dos caças. Os principais alvos eram os centros industriais alemães e a capital, Berlim, a 885 quilômetros das bases americanas no sudeste da Inglaterra. A maioria das missões de escolta foi realizada pelos Thunderbolts, que voavam até o limite de seu alcance, cerca de 320 quilômetros da base. Com tanques de combustível extras, o alcance aumentou para 480 quilômetros, mas ainda muito longe de Berlim. A tarefa deles era proteger os bombardeiros. Sob a liderança de pilotos como o coronel Don Blakesley, os americanos começaram a ganhar a fama de combatentes agressivos.
Don Blakesley was sort of a fighter pilot god on a pedestal. Everybody knew who he was, and he was a great leader.
Colonel Don Blakesley, great leader of 4th Group.
I actually like the business. It's probably a horrible thing to say, but I got a hell of a kick out of it, particularly when you're winning. My feeling was, if you see it, you go after it. Just aggressive. Just be aggressive. And it worked.
Os alemães logo aprenderam a respeitar esses combatentes, mas também aprenderam a explorar o alcance limitado dos americanos.
As we were going in and we were reaching our maximum range, you could see the Germans out there circling, waiting. They knew exactly when we had to go.
No momento em que eram mais necessários, os Thunderbolts eram obrigados a voltar para casa ou ficariam sem combustível. Agora os bombardeiros estavam sozinhos, sabendo que os caças alemães estavam à espera deles.
That was rather disheartening when you saw them turn back, because you knew you were going to catch it from then on.
And as soon as we would leave, you could look back and you could see the tangling going on. And this was a horrible sight. There was nothing we could do.
Fighters at 6 o'clock. This is what a gunner sees. A speck in the sky. That's a fighter. And then a blink. That means he's firing at you. 2,300 rounds a minute.
You see those leading edges light up like neon signs, and you know that they're shooting at you. And they mean business.
They must have got a direct hit on the bombs, because there was an explosion, little pieces of tinsel falling down, and the smoke ring started to form. And by the time we got out, the smoke ring was still in the air. That's all there was left of them. Sad.
That kind of thing was dreamlike. To see this panorama of destruction in the sky and little dots sometimes jumping out of the bombers. People, guys, jumping out, some chutes opening, sometimes you see a dot disappear. Just the dot.
Come on, you guys, get out of that plane. Bail out. There's one. He come out of the bomb bay.
Yeah, I see him.
There's a tail gunner coming out.
Right in front of me, his tail gunner bailed out, and he didn't have his chute snapped on. And he had it in his hand, but the slipstream took it away from him. I saw him fall, and he had to go 26,000 feet with no visible means of support. The only thing I could think of, well, he's got plenty of time to say his prayers on the way down.
Those bomber crews were brave men. What they did, I would not want to do.
The only time that you feel miserable, as far as I was concerned, is when I watched the bombers going down, and you couldn't do a darn thing about it. And you know they're not going to make it, and it is the most disheartening experience. Sometimes you come back, and you're practically in tears.
You knew that there are 10 guys in there that aren't going to be home that night. And there was nothing I, as a fighter pilot, could do about it.
A necessidade de escoltas de longo alcance foi provada em 17 de agosto de 1943. Durante ataques em Scheinfurt e Regensburg, foram derrubadas 60 aeronaves com 10 tripulantes cada. Em uma única semana em outubro, 148 bombardeiros e 1.500 tripulantes não retornaram das missões. O preço da operação era alto demais. Se os americanos quisessem bombardear a Alemanha, um caça de longo alcance e eficiente precisava ser encontrado. Algumas pessoas achavam que a solução era o esquecido Mustang. Ele tinha alcance, velocidade e poder de fogo, e só precisava ser capaz de combater em grande altitude. Em 1942, engenheiros da Rolls-Royce haviam tentado substituir o motor Allison do Mustang pelo Merlin, o motor do Spitfire britânico. Ao contrário do Allison, ele era muito eficiente em grande altitude. O O resultado foi uma melhora instantânea no desempenho. O Merlin fornecia mais potência a 7.600 metros do que o Allison na decolagem. E fazia isso com a metade do combustível consumido pelo motor do Thunderbolt. As forças aéreas britânica e americana ficaram impressionadas. Elas encomendaram inúmeros Mustangs. Ficou decidido que o Packard Merlin americano seria um motor padrão para toda a produção.
I don't think the Americans would have had that sort of fighter if we hadn't tactfully got in the Merlin.
I think it's one of the greatest examples of cooperation between two countries in trouble. I think it shows that all those brilliant minds could actually get together and work together without jealousies.
As últimas peças do Mustang se encaixaram quando o P-51D foi introduzido em maio de 1944. O novo modelo tinha um design diferente, com fuselagem traseira mais baixa e uma capota de plástico transparente, fornecendo um campo de visão irrestrito, enquanto criava um perfil totalmente novo. O Mustang era um puro sangue, o campeão do estábulo aliado.
Even on the ground, with its wheels down, it looked like it was going forward. It was beautifully streamlined. It had all the right contours, I guess. It looked like a fighter plane should look.
And it has a sound all of its own. There's no sound for like the P-51.
The Mustang is the pilot's airplane. You have to understand that. You climb into that plane, and that airplane becomes a part of you.
It responded so well to the controls, it just felt good to fly it. We used to say, if you wanted to turn left, you roll your eyeballs left, and that was about all you needed.
You were a part of the plane. It was as if you were a bird. It flew beautifully. It responded perfectly. It flew with power and grace, and it was gorgeous to be in that plane and flying.
I really think it was a love affair between a young pilot and his airplane. We felt that we were capable of doing anything we wanted to do in the airplane. The enemy was defeated in our mind when we crawled into the cockpit.
Eles haviam recebido o caça mais potente do arsenal aliado. Ele tinha o melhor motor disponível. As 6 metralhadoras, 3 em cada asa, disparavam um total de 1.880 cargas. Ele carregava mais de 1.800 litros de combustível com 2 tanques descartáveis sob as asas e podia voar mais de 3.200 quilômetros.
To have been given an airplane like this, a P-51 Mustang fighter, as my own, I felt terrific.
Finalmente, os bombardeiros americanos tinham a proteção de que precisavam. Carro.
The Mustang, the P-51, the longest range fighter in the world. Speed, fast climb, quick dive, tight turn. Into these great fighters, America poured its genius, its millions of man-hours of labor, its faith in victory against the Luftwaffe. And in their single cockpits, it placed these men.
I didn't have the faintest idea what the hell was going on. I knew why we were fighting, but I didn't know how. The first time I really realized that I was in combat was I saw my wingman shot up and going down. And I had never seen the enemy aircraft that did it. I know at the time I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing here? I'm way out of my league.
Se quisessem sobreviver em combate, os jovens pilotos tinham que aprender, e rápido.
You still can feel your heart pounding pretty fast, and yeah, there's some fear the first mission or two that, how's this really going to go?
I was scared to death, and I'll tell you, anybody that says they weren't scared to death is a liar.
I was new and nervous, and with the gyrations of the plane, I started to, I had to throw up. And when I got back to Steeple Morden, landed, oh, I felt terrible. I felt maybe I didn't have what it takes. I felt humiliated. Came up to the hard stand, and the crew chief climbs on the wing, and the canopy goes back. And I saw him look, and I told him, I'm terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry. I'll help you clean it up. And he said, look, I've seen worse, and I felt wonderful. It meant there were others too. It wasn't just me. But those 3 words were a psychological turning point for me. And I never threw up again. I felt I could do it.
Cada piloto dependia de seu chefe de tripulação. Ele liderava a tripulação em terra que mantinha e armava o caça. Eles se dedicavam ao bem-estar dos pilotos, contanto que eles cuidassem da aeronave tão bem quanto os chefes de tripulação.
The crew chiefs felt it was their plane. The plane was charged out to the crew chief, not to the pilot. And he took care of that thing as if it was a little baby. Right. He did everything but put a diaper on it.
I'm still fighting with my old crew chief for 55 years as to who owned my airplane. You talk to a crew chief, he owned it. You talk to a pilot, the pilot owned it. He says he owned it, and you only fly because I let you.
When the airplane is on the ground, it belongs to the crew chief. It's his airplane. And it's almost like a father with his daughter. And you come as a high school kid, and you're going to take his daughter out, you know. So he looks you over, and he checks you out and everything, and you're very careful. You bring my daughter back, and it's the same thing with the airplane. But when you climb into that airplane, and the crew chief and the assistant crew chief buckle you in, they snap on your harness, and the umbilical cord is tied, it's no longer his airplane, it's my bird. It was my girlfriend, it was my baby.
Os pilotos de Mustangs gostavam de personalizar suas aeronaves. A maioria era batizada com o nome das esposas ou namoradas.
At that time, Walt Disney's motion picture Dumbo had come out, and in Dumbo there was a song that the mother sings to Dumbo, "Baby mine, don't you cry," so forth. And that song used to go through my head when I was flying. So I said, that's a perfect name. So I'll call it Baby Mine. Then whenever I went out with a girl, they'd say, what did you name your plane? I said, I named it after you, Baby Mine. And it worked.
Dia após dia, imensas formações de bombardeiros e caças da 8ª Força Aérea Americana decolavam rumo ao espaço aéreo alemão. Partiam de dezenas de campos de pousos no sudeste da Inglaterra.
We were sort of like a flying gun platform in a flying gas tank. That's what you were. Because every inch of that plane practically was loaded with gas and ammunition.
Quando as tripulações saíam da paz da zona rural inglesa com suas campinas e chalés para o horror da moderna tática de guerra aérea, elas compartilhavam uma vida estranha e instável. Como gladiadores romanos, eles podiam comemorar uma vitória um dia e lamentar a morte de um colega no outro. A única certeza era que cada missão poderia ser a última.
I always knew I was coming back. It's always the old story if there's 100 fighter pilots in a room and the old man said, this mission is so dangerous, only one of you is coming back, you'll look at all the others and say, you poor fellas. A fellow in my barracks had a chessboard, and he and I ran an ongoing chess game at all times. And we often said, well, this is to guarantee that both of us are coming back because we want to see who wins this chess game.
And it's so random. You don't know where it's going to happen or to whom.
We would really feel bad if we lost some of our people. And we'd often wonder what has happened to them, what happened. And in the debriefing, no one would really know. They just didn't come back, or someone would see them bailing out, or someone would see them going into the ground. But we never really knew what happened after that. He was there today, he was there yesterday, and he won't be there tomorrow.
Este era o mundo carregado das unidades Mustang que os pilotos alemães aprenderam a respeitar. Eles eram corajosos em combate, e muitos pilotos haviam conseguido os 5 acertos necessários para entrar no grupo de elite dos ases dos caças.
Being a fighter pilot in combat is always a matter of goals. You want to destroy your first enemy airplane. So once you've destroyed the first, then you become greedy. You want 4 more so you can become an ace. Then you become greedier yet because now you want to destroy more than anybody else in the group. It's just a matter of wanting more all the time.
When that P-51 engine turns over and each of the cylinders hit with one explosion after the other and a roar, you don't hear the noise, you feel it in your stomach, in your gut.
You're strapped in tight, you roll up the canopy, you push the throttle forward, and you go.
There were several mornings when we were escorting and the sun was just coming up. And it looked like a silver road in the sky with those bombers. It was an amazing sight, one that I'll never forget.
A 1,000 bomber mission meant that there were 700 fighters escorting the 1,000 bombers. There were 10 men in each bomber, so that's 10,700 men that were flying in any one day. This happened on a daily basis.
It must have been terrifying to look up and see 1,500 contrails that would whiten the sky as we swept in over Germany.
Quem observava esses rastros brancos eram os soldados da artilharia antiaérea e os pilotos de caça alemães, determinados a defender seu país a qualquer custo. Voando milhares de metros acima dos bombardeiros, os caças de escolta iam e voltavam atentos ao inimigo.
If there's one characteristic that you need to be a fighter pilot, it's a neck that turns. If you're up there and flying at, say, 22,000, 25,000 feet, there's a heck of a lot of sky, and you're constantly looking around, not only to protect the bombers, but to protect yourself.
We love to see them escort. because we knew when they were around we were not likely to get any fighter attacks, or if we did, they would be chased off in a hurry. But we thought the fighter escort that took us all the way to Berlin and back, that was really something great.
O trabalho na escolta podia ser solitário, com contato mínimo pelo rádio para quebrar o isolamento.
You didn't hear swishing or anything like that of wind going by. All you heard was the noise of this powerful Rolls-Royce Merlin engine in front of you. And you hoped you heard that noise through the entire flight.
O piloto alternava constantemente entre os 5 tanques de combustível do Mustang, esvaziando os tanques externos primeiro. Eles seriam descartados antes da ação. As missões de escolta podiam durar mais de 6 horas, e o cansaço sempre era um problema.
You were the only person in the plane, of course. You were the pilot, you were the navigator, and you were the gunner.
When I got up high there, like 23,000 feet, and I might not have, no one else was around, I had this terrible lonesome feeling with the earth way down there.
When you get up at altitude, it's 50 degrees below 0 centigrade outside that plane. And when you have 1/8 of an inch aluminum between you, it doesn't insulate you, it conducts the cold into the cockpit. So it is cold.
Amortecido pelo frio, cego pelo sol e ensurdecido pelo estrondo do motor, os sentidos ficavam confusos e era fácil para o piloto perder a concentração.
I think more than the fatigue, and I have to be candid about it, was the boredom. The actual boredom of flying a long-range escort mission and not getting any action at all. Because you'd often wonder, what am I doing out here, you know? Why don't these fellows come up? Why don't we get a little excitement going?
De repente, alguém gritava um alerta pelo rádio, quando caças alemães se aproximavam da formação de bombardeiros abaixo.
It was instant. We dropped tanks and went into them. We were supposed to defend the bombers. That was our responsibility. And we always attacked. We always attacked, no matter how many.
Atingir um alvo veloz em movimento exigia cálculos complexos e instintivos do piloto.
It's just like playing football, throwing a pass. You just had to lead them and take a guess. And my marksmanship was good.
Tenths of a second meant something. If you're going 400 miles an hour, that's 600 feet a second, okay? And in a tenth of a second, you're 60 feet away from where you were. That doesn't give you very much time to ponder what your next action is. You've got to do it in real time fast. Very fast.
The best way to do it is to fly up their butt and let them have it. That works every time.
I'd say at least 50% of the time, the victim was unaware that he was being attacked. And that was the ideal situation for getting a kill, but you sneak up on a guy and doesn't even know you're there, and then you blow him out of the sky.
We flew right under a flight of 109s. My wingman, Bert Stiles, was yelling, 109s, let's get out of here. And I just said, don't panic, Bert. He was fairly new. Don't panic. I pulled in behind him and I thought, boy, we're going to hit something here. And Bert screaming on to me again, let's get out of here, let's get out of here. He sees that there's another flight following that flight, and we're in between them, and I'm fat, dumb, and happy until I realized that those sounds I heard outside the cockpit were not my engine backfiring, but 20-millimeter shells exploding. And then I knew Bert knew more than I did. I slammed the stick over to the left and kicked the right rudder just as hard as I could to snap roll the airplane down into the clouds again. Got down below, everything's nice, peaceful down there.
Quando um combate aéreo começava, as chances eram mais equilibradas. Os combates eram uma série de encontros casuais e fugas espetaculares.
I looked to left, and there was an ME-109 shooting at me, coming through this break in the clouds, and you could see the black smoke coming from the wings as he was firing, but he was head on to me. I yelled, "Break left, yellow flag."
As tentativas de despistar o inimigo geralmente terminavam com uma perseguição em baixa altitude. Sem chance de escapar, a morte era quase certa para o perdedor.
He knew he was going to crash, so he pulled up trying to get altitude to bail out. And he didn't quite make it. The parachute didn't quite open, and of course I saw him hit the ground. And that was a very, well, it was a difficult moment, let's say. Then you realize those people are just like I am. You know, he's a fighter pilot, and I was too.
All this happens in a matter of seconds. And that's a long time. Seconds.
A capital alemã, Berlim, era protegida por milhares de canhões antiaéreos. Quando os bombardeiros se aproximavam do alvo, não tinham escolha além de enfrentar os tiros. Os pilotos dos caças de escolta só podiam olhar. Nem o Mustang podia enfrentar a artilharia.
When you were on the bomb run, you knew that bombardier, his bomb sight was controlling the airplane, and you knew that he wasn't going to take any evasive action. No way he could. And so you were sort of a sitting duck. When I talked to fighter pilots, they said, "Boy, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. You know, they're flying through all that flak. We don't mess with that." Then I say, "Well, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes either." But it just seemed to me like what they were doing was a heck of a lot more dangerous than what we were doing.
Depois que os bombardeiros liberavam sua carga fatal e limpavam o espaço aéreo inimigo, os caças podiam usar a munição restante em alvos de oportunidade. Bases da Força Aérea Alemã, comboios rodoviários e trens de carga eram os alvos favoritos.
We were authorized to go down on the deck. And then you have a lot of fun there. Anything that moves, you shoot it.
Mas esses ataques eram perigosos. Para cada Mustang derrubado por aviões inimigos, 5 eram derrubados pela artilharia terrestre.
You come over the treetops, you come up like this, and as soon as you came up, tracer bullets, all these red golf balls would be coming at you. My mind flipped back to when I was a little kid sitting in the dentist chair. I thought, it's not going to hurt long. And that's what I thought every time that I was in a situation like that. It won't hurt long.
As bombas lançadas sobre as cidades industriais alemãs destruíram o centro da máquina de guerra nazista.
We knew that we were causing a lot of devastation down there, and it bothered me a little sometimes, the fact that we sometimes dropped through an overcast, so we weren't hitting a military target, we were just hitting the city. And I rather imagined sometimes that my bombs might be killing somebody that I'd rather not kill.
As unidades de caça alemãs que chegaram a dominar a guerra aérea estavam ficando sem peças sobressalentes, combustível, aeronaves adequadas e pilotos treinados.
Toward the end of the war, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel, and these kids, I don't know how much training they had, but it was obvious they didn't have too much. So, like shooting fish in a barrel. And if it's the enemy, I don't mind shooting fish in a barrel.
Em 14 de janeiro de 1945, os Mustangs derrubaram 161 aviões inimigos. No ataque de 16 de abril, mais de 700 aeronaves alemãs foram destruídas, principalmente no chão. Mais de 80 aeronaves foram destruídas em um ataque a um campo de pouso. A força aérea de Hitler estava liquidada.
I didn't dislike the Germans. I hated the son of a bitches. So that took care of a lot of my problems, because if I thought I could get one, I'd do a certain number. If I figured I could get 1,000, I'd have done a hell of a lot more.
Agora os aliados eram os mestres dos céus. Sem a proteção dos caças, as forças terrestres alemãs estavam à mercê dos aliados, que avançavam em direção ao centro da Alemanha. Hermann Göring, chefe da Força Aérea de Hitler, conhecia o papel do Mustang em sua derrota. Ele disse a seus captores: quando viu os caças sobre Berlim, sabia que a festa havia acabado. Quando a guerra na Europa acabou em maio de 1945, o Mustang ainda tinha um papel crucial no Pacífico. Mas seus dias de glória estavam quase acabando.
That was a hell of a plane. It was one of a kind. In its day, I mean, it was the finest as far as I'm concerned.
You never forget it. I got to tell you this. I think what it is, that was the only thing I've ever done in my life that did anything for mankind. And so you never forget it.
I dream about missions today. I dream about what I could have done, what I should have done, where I made mistakes, where I could have improved myself. I still dream about it all the time.
In those days, there was a strong sense that we were fighting to save democracy, without a doubt. We were all committed to winning, and, if necessary, to sacrifice our lives. There was no question about it. People didn't draw back, even though they were outnumbered 15-1. 10-1, 15-1. That didn't hold them back. And if you don't believe in something, you don't do that.
People have asked me, didn't you just hate it? And I say, are you kidding? I was 20 years old and they gave me this big, beautiful airplane. I had the time of my life.